think we really need philosophy courses to train people's critical thinking, or even just how to think. And I think it really does help stretch one's mind. I think mathematics and philosophy are two of the best ways to train one's mind. I think contrary to what a lot of people in the West might think, I don't think we're lacking in mathematical training, but we certainly are lacking in philosophical training. And I think we should inject a little bit more of that into our secondary school curriculum. I would say maybe it's slightly too early for primary school.
I think that's such a good point. So I think the relevance today, and let me know if you agree with it, is just the fact that philosophy really is the foundation of critical thinking. And I think now more than ever, there's been so much progression in our society. The internet has really shaped our very lives. And of course, the rise of social media, there's just information out there being bombarded, at us every single day. I think now more than ever, it's so crucial for us to really develop a sense of critical thinking, to be able to determine and discern what's actually being presented to us, which affects our lives really and how we live. I mean, you think about even recently with the whole situation of cryptocurrencies, and a lot of people are getting very into that. I think it's so important. It really affects us in a very substantial way, and that's the thing that people overlook, because when they think about philosophy, they think about perhaps an image of a person who lived thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago with a grey beard. has no sort of influence on us. But you're right. I think it's important to have that in the curriculum, maybe, or maybe at least people being encouraged to actually pick it up as well, to read into it.
But Mel, do you think it would suffice to provide critical thinking courses in secondary schools? Because you and I went to boarding schools in the UK, and when I was at Harrow, they offered critical thinking as an independent A-level subject, and I did that.
Same here.
And,
yes.
Yeah, and I think that was not bad.
I think
was
it's
more
so
to do with
important.
logic. Yeah. But that suffice, because not many schools. I know that you can do philosophy for A levels, but do you think it was necessary, or was it sufficient to just do a cooking course instead?
I think recalling back to my experience of actually doing critical thinking in school, I mean, that presented at least a lot of the sort of the foundations really that's really being presented by philosophy in a very practical way, so you can pick it up very easily. But I think further reading of philosophy really expands your mind. It goes beyond just critical thinking. It really does shape you in a very significant way. I think that's very important. But personally, I think regardless, I think critical thinking, at least being taught in school, is a very important thing. And I think, compared to people who've never really actually picked this up, they just seem so much more gullible compared to others who are more critical. I mean, it's a very simple thing, really.
You'll see a strong argument for people study philosophy more than just critical thinking. My reasoning is this: you and I, or maybe you still are, a barrister. Well, we both were, I think.
We were,
and we were.
Yeah. Maybe we're too critical, and here we are.
Yeah, well. I think most of the barristers in Hong Kong wouldn't have had any training in the philosophical sense.
No.
And I keep thinking that sets a limit in terms of the range of that critical thinking. If you know what I mean, I think if one studied philosophy, it does stretch one's mind so much that you just tend to think slightly more slightly deeper, as opposed to many barristers that I come across who are slightly superficial still in terms of the argument. I see a limit. I don't know if you get that feeling too, but a lot of lawyers that we get here were schooled in the sort of traditional, and yet that's about it. They're very educated in that discipline, but once they step beyond that, it seems that they are quite unable to apply their training to other areas of life. Now, I think we are not always in our lawyer mode. We're human beings after all, and we have to live our lives. We have to think about different issues. not just legal matters. And I just think that an education in philosophy allows one to really think broadly on a wide range of topics.
Yeah.
And yet sometimes when you talk to lawyers, you sometimes you think, they're not quite unable to express a firm view on things other than legal matters.
I think that's brilliant, Joe, and it really resonated with me. I think the thing you're trying to talk about is really this idea that, you know, if you think about it, philosophy really allows you, beyond just developing critical thinking, which will benefit you obviously as you know go through society, but really it also is very much self-discovery and really finding out who you are. And the reason why I say this is really, if you think about it, as we have progressed as a society, I think the system of society is just making all of us so much more, you know, conformist in a way. We all have, for example, the same sort of iPhones, the same Instagram accounts, we're watching the same shows, we're doing the same things, the same jobs, the same sort of aspiration. Philosophy, at least depending who you're reading into, it really allows you to sort of challenge a norm and really discover what it is and who you are and the meaning of and your life and how it's supposed to play out. So it's maybe for some people, it's not just about being a barrister or lawyer or, you know, whatever. It really is, you know, discovering who you are and the purpose of your life. I think philosophy allows that really. Even someone, let's say, you know, as ancient as for example, Socrates, who talks about the purpose of life being to seek out happiness and really to have a conscious sort of living. You know, lessons like that, they don't really teach you specifically in school unless you're taking philosophy and unless you're reading about philosophy. I think that's so important. So, you know, it's not just about aspiring to be very good at your career, but also really to discover happiness through your own self-discovery. I think that's sort of what you're talking about in terms of, you know, you have all these barristers, these doctors, or all sorts of professionals being very good at their jobs, but again, that's just them sort of conforming to the system and the way of living. And but really, who are they? I mean, there's so many barristers out there. There's so many, you know, doctors, so many all sorts of professions. But it really allows us to claim us for us.
You're quite right. I mean, I often think whether it's deliberate. I don't know if Bertrand Russell mentioned it in some of his writings, but if you want to be a conspiracy theorist, you know, there might be a reason why not teach, you know, offer philosophy courses. It's a similar argument. History courses being, you know, all biased in every single country, you know.
Right, yeah.
Maybe, you know, the big governments do not want its citizens to be too educated in philosophy so that, you know, people wouldn't be too independent minded. That might be a reason, because I can only see benefits to people if we get more philosophy instructions. But to me, it's clear that at least in Hong Kong, nobody really talks about it, and even if this discussion is taking place in Cantonese, I doubt many people would be that interested in what we are discussing. But that's the truth.